See, I need help practicing my pretend selfie. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you here. It's a real pleasure to speak to you, and special thanks to Arlindo and his amazing team. I know from personal experience how challenging it is to put together these kinds of conferences, so I really appreciate all the hard work that went into it and for your kind invitation and hospitality. And also to all of you for coming here. As I was thinking through this presentation, and I love to follow Jill's presentation, and because in many ways it really, I think, helps to amplify some of the themes that I would like to speak about today. And these are that there's something unique that binds us all. It's a kind of intense curiosity of life, and I love to watch people geek out on these different things in the life that they discover. And a sense of adventure that kind of binds us all together as well. They're like these different threads that can go further or deeper, but all kind of weave together in this fabric of life. And I think what we're all doing is a kind of affirmation for the life that we love and the things that we want to pursue. So today, in the 19 minutes that I have left, what I want to talk to you a little bit about is a very brief history, because we don't have time for history at this moment, but what I'd like to do is kind of piece together a few linking components, and then I want to close out by just talking about a couple of recent expeditions that hopefully bring home my point. Okay, so as I said, I think what binds us together in many cases is our love of adventure, and we talked a little bit yesterday about the sort of team and all the various people that don't often go recognized. And this might be an example. I think we're all interested to go in various places where we haven't been, and some of us are very interested to go where no person has gone before. And I think that a lot of people don't get recognized, but then later do. And we've tried to call out some of those importance of the various teams that are with us. And I made reference to this comment that I heard from Bill one time, and I agreed totally. I was laughing to myself how true it was, and talking to a friend recently about the concept of space tourism is actually becoming more and more real. I know a person now scheduled on a somehow affordable corporate trip going out into space, and I'm hopeful that sometime in my life this might be something that we could really realize. But in the meantime, we have a place that has always really been one of the most special places to me in the world. I grew up in the water, around the water. My mother taught me to swim before I could walk, which maybe she was just trying to get me quiet and get rid of me, but I was resilient, so I fought those temptations. So I've been around and in the water really since the very beginning. And as I started to get into the sport of cave diving in the 1980s, this is when I met Michael and many of the people here that now I've had the opportunity to commune with and reconnect with over decades now. I started to see taking shape a progressively more developed form of what we've called technical diving. Of course, people had been doing amazing things since before Jacques Cousteau and all the way up to that time. But what started to develop was not only the technology, but the community and the connections. And that's one of the things that Michael did really well, was help to start bringing people together into this concept of technical diving, particularly in the 80s and gaining additional traction in the 90s. And of course, all of that started to amalgamate. We started to learn from each other. We started to develop together. We started to develop our communities together. And we started to develop equipment. As Lee mentioned, a lot of it was fairly tragic in the beginning. I love this picture. This is my 1995 Turkish expedition. We're using sealed lead acid batteries and halogen lights and a scooter that we spent hours modifying. This is a recreational Tecna DPV, which many of you have used probably in the past. We would spend hours sanding wooden ribs to put inside these scooters so that we could take them much deeper than they were intended, aluminum plates on them. The computers before Bruce and Lynn and Shearwater, as we heard about the other day, developed a usable computer. We always had our decompression habitats that we would put the useless computer inside so it could decompress throughout the dive and could be used again in the future. So we had many different evolutions. There was actually a time when even having deep diving tables wasn't available. We would trade them like playing cards and try to find a way to gather together enough decompression tables to really make success of the particular dive. And I tried to be a part of evolving with our team, but of all the different things that we innovated, I think the introduction to the P valve, for both men and women, I might note, is one of my prouder moments, so that fewer of us had to stand around naked in the boats and in the jungles putting on diapers. If you've never watched a grown man put on diapers, then it's a pretty entertaining prospect, I would say. And so those kinds of small advances, together with advances in team development and a sense of community, and the efforts to organize individuals to a greater accomplishment, people working together to try to advance people further, deeper, further, or into more remote locations, which is one of the things that I want to talk a bit about as well. And then, of course, technological innovations, Martin Parker and many others starting in the early years. For us, these early rebreathers weren't useful for the kinds of diving we envisioned, which were very long dives, and technology itself wasn't available. How many people remember the days before iPhones and advanced technology? And those things all developed progressively over time. And these pioneering spirits that helped to develop this sorts of technology were amazing assets and have become very reliable machines in more modern era, which I'm going to also start to talk about. We used a fair bit of semi-closed mechanical rebreathers in those early days, and we still do use them for a variety of purposes in the days today. And then this technology continued to evolve more efficiently. In the very earliest days, we used to use watering troughs upside down in the ceiling in order to get our heads out and get a little bite to eat on long decompression dives. But they've become much more sophisticated now with CO2 scrubbers available to them, real-time communications to the surface, portable systems that can be used in a variety of very remote locations, also tethered to the bottom. Incredible scooters. Suex has done a fascinating job building out a massive platform of very effective tools that can be used for mapping and long distance riding. Much different to the early Techna DPV that I showed you. These are incredibly powerful tools. This picture, how does a pool fit into all this? Just because I spent the last couple of years developing a nice training environment, and it's been really neat to see the proliferation of access for people all around the world. We take about 40% of our people are first-time divers in a 60-meter pool that we built in Dubai, a themed environment that gets people an active ability to get in the water and experiment. And it's also awesome for the first couple days of technical training before we take people out into the ocean and get some additional experience. And now this technology is starting to reach a real crescendo. So I call it the real revolution just because now the access, the diversity, and the reliability of these fully closed circuit units has reached a really epic proportion. Now they're incredibly reliable, and many companies producing amazing tools available in a variety of different configurations. So we have everything from split lung, counter lungs, to chest mount, to back mount, to double back mount. So there's many different options available for people that can cater to the kind of diving that they're utilizing in given configurations, which really makes it a lot easier for people. And then, of course, we took a little bit yesterday about even deeper dives, so these beyond 200 and even 300-meter dives, these kinds of very complex kind of environments with lots of variables. We talked a little bit about the possibility for robotic futures, and this is the sunfish that I know Jill was part of this, Bill Stone, developing some really amazing mapping systems. I think, unlike Jill, I would like to be there, but I think we compromised, right? We're going to go for the suit. This is just an AI-generated suit, which I think would be an amazing way to explore some of these environments. Though we have to recognize that artificial intelligence and robotic systems will probably be a big part of the new frontier, both in space and underwater, and hopefully we will be able to enjoy some of the collateral benefits from those kinds of developments. We've heard a little bit about the Project Deep, which is trying to build some pretty interesting platforms for underwater exploration and research, so it'll be fun to see how our friends from those activities might build out that platform and facilitate a whole host of additional activities around the world. And so all of these tools, I like to think, can integrate very well in the same way that AI systems are much more effective for us to utilize in concert. So we can build our own capacity by utilizing and leveraging these tools. And a lot of times these more advanced deep diving tools can also be put together. This is one of our projects where we were working on 120-meter shipwrecks and working together with researchers and archaeologists to not only document these environments, but also determine which things to bring up. So for example, bringing over artifacts and working with the researchers and the museum curators to decide which things should stay and which should be brought up. During this particular project, we discovered a 10,000-year-old sacrificial altar, a small one used for animals to pray to the gods for good weather. And this is something we would really never have been able to do were it not for the divers and the subs working together to uncover and then determine that this was an artifact worth bringing up. So these kinds of synergies and these kinds of expanded capacities, I think, are an important part of our future, as are the deliverables. Jill had some great models up. Lee mentioned the other day about the advancement of photography, but really, broadly speaking, our ability to capture the environment in significant detail in a way that brings credible value to researchers around the world. Almost all of us that are doing a lot of these activities are involved in pretty intense and focused development for useful deliverables to bring this environment back to the general public or to study different nuances in those environments. This top right picture is one of our projects in Brazil, documenting some of the ancient civilizations there. And this area is proving to have what appear to be some of the oldest humanoid forms in that region. And the lower picture is from the Mars in the Baltic Sea, one of our early efforts at starting to gather these very detailed photogrammetry models. And so the hope for the future is that the planet is filled with a lot of water. So there's a lot of places to go. The red areas indicate karstic areas, and these are areas that are more favorable for cave diving. The rest of the the rest of the ocean and water bodies are favorable for any sort of diving. So whether you're interested in open water, deep, shallow, or broadly diverse in overhead environments, there's an amazing amount of opportunity all around the world. And Brazil is one of those areas I started traveling to in the 1990s, and this is one of those areas that just has vast expanses, many undiscovered caves throughout this region, and many caves around the world. Everywhere you look is nature, and it seems like every time we go through the jungle, we find another cave, many of which have never been dived before. And they create really fascinating opportunities, together with the more sophisticated tools, both to explore those environments and to document those environments. They're much more capable. This is about a 25-hour drive from São Paulo, bringing all the assets with us, and over time you start to develop, of course, these tools to allow you to be more efficient in these remote kinds of environments. Often long walks and good exercise through cow fields where you have to dodge bulls, but very interesting and remote and dynamic kinds of environments where you're rarely seeing any kind of people and are really amazing locations to explore. And this is one of the early sinkholes there. There had been people diving in the sinkhole, but nobody had explored into the cave. Like many of the caves in this particular region, which is the extreme north of Brazil, sort of very near the Amazonian border zone. And there are many different caves in this area, and each of the ones we explore are going very quickly down below 100 meters. They're vast cave systems. Many of them are really clear and beautiful areas. Still quite remote and difficult, but now with all of the technological developments and the many different people that are capable of diving in these environments, we can form very effective teams that allow us to be more efficient at exploring these regions. So these vast open spaces, large cave systems, amazing exploration. It's one of the first times recently that I've been able to start from the very entrance of the cave and explore outward. And this is something that's available to really many different people around the world because there are new caves being discovered all over. As more divers become interested in technical diving, they naturally go train and then look to things that are nearby their particular area. And you can find many amazing places through that process. This is Indonesian. I believe Ranva's coming on to talk to us on a live feed. I believe that's still the plan, but I know that her and her team are over there exploring a different region in Indonesia. We've had 6-8 trips over there so far. Each time we discover new caves and explore new parts of Indonesia, and many of these areas are really still fascinating and open for exploration. A lot of the caves we've seen tend to be amazing places but shut down relatively quickly, but now it appears that we're starting to develop more and more opportunities to find caves that actually go pretty far. The area is really super interesting. So it's an area where you had 3 different plates colliding, so the geology is pretty fascinating. There's a tremendous amount of cave and limestone and opportunity there, and culturally it's a quite diverse area as well. I haven't seen any cave paintings at any of the caves we're diving, but the area has a lot of very old cave paintings, apparently some of the oldest in the world, and we are finding pottery that we're interested in developing additional study and development for. It's a bit of a trip, and the fill stations are sometimes cobbled together, but they work quite efficiently. There isn't a whole lot of infrastructure in the area, but pretty much everything is available to people. Rock and Roll Divers is the group of locals that we use there, an Indonesian group, very excited. They're very active divers themselves. Many of the caves are shallow. There are some caves that are deep that I'll come to in a second, but many of them are shallow. You can dive doubles there, but most of them are more appropriately entered with side mount because a lot of the entrances are relatively small. Don't go expecting a 5-star vacation, so there's still a very developing area. If you get hot water, then you should be grateful. But the area itself is amazing, and the people are really, really great people, really fascinating and friendly. Lots of collections of dry cave, wet cave intersections, lots of bat encounter opportunities. Really tremendously beautiful caves, some of which remind me a little bit of some of the activities in the Bahamas where you get this kind of salt crystallization occurring together with the speleothem formations. But the area is also quite fragile, so we have now moved all to rebreather wherever practical, because though the bubbles do end up creating quite a lot of percolation that starts to develop over time. We also are locating quite a bit of pottery, which needs some further study and evaluation, so we will be working with the local governments there to identify some of those regions as well. We can see a fair number of halocline interactions. The area here, where we're in Sulawesi Island, so near Bhutan, this area is quite close to the coast, so you will see a halocline fresh saltwater interface, and as you can see, just a few bubbles into the ceiling can create quite a lot of percolation. If you look closely at a lot of these, you'll also see an amazing amount of ancient coral reef. So really all of this is compacted coral reef over time. You can see even up here in the center picture, you can see a large clam shell. This is really the only area that I've dived before where you can see these full-size sea clams, sometimes embedded into the rock and then sometimes sitting on the cave floor themselves. So it's really quite fascinating area. And the coral that's all compacted, loosely consolidated into this region is quite evident throughout as you look around. So we did several projects in shallower dives, but then the logistics there are quite difficult. You can dive side mount, you can get access to back mount, but rebreathers weren't really very available. So we started experimenting with the use of our new chest mount style that's very easy for travel, light and easy and convenient to travel with. And this platform allowed us to do a lot more deep dive activity in the region. So we shipped some helium over. And if any of you have a phone handy, this will give you some pretty nice three-dimensional views of the region. There's, I think, 12 or 13 overviews where you can kind of scan through and see a lot of the areas that we were active in and diving. Thanks to Sam Meechan, one of our GUE team members and SYNDAC group members, who put some of these models together. And it's like a little toolkit that he kind of comes together with several of our team members, and we can all work together to really dynamically develop models of the area. And there'll be another one in a sec, so keep your phones out, which allows you to see some of the modeling that occurs. And in these particular cases, we managed the opportunity to dive many of the deep caves as well and started to explore those. And those opportunities provide a little bit more penetration into the cave zones, but still amazing vistas and fabulous caves. Again, some more pottery and unique environments. And now we've recently discovered a whole new region that promises to have big caves that appear to be going fairly significantly and fairly continuously. Some of these have a strong connection to the ocean, so you can see a nice tidal influence from the flow that occurs. A couple of them, or some of them, are right on the coastline itself, so you can end up with opportunities to engage in sea caves as well as freshwater caves. Here you see the side mount RB80, which is still commonly used in a lot of side mount applications. We use it a lot for redundant rebreather use because that's non-electronic design, allows you to store it in the water, leave it overnight, leave it anywhere. There's no batteries or other electronics. But most commonly, we're using fully closed circuit units in most of these kind of environments. This is my favorite truck to get the gear to the dive site, so it made things a lot easier. And this is one of the sea caves that we dove in the region. Some really nice diving opportunities, a lot of fissure-like formations near the sea caves, not from my perspective quite as nice or extensive as the stuff a little bit further inland. But broadly speaking, the kind of deliverables that come from many of these projects are significantly more expansive than they ever were, and the quality of those deliverables now has reached new heights so that they can really be very useful to researchers in the various activities that they're pursuing. So all of this kind of work, when we do it, we make it available. Another opportunity, this is one of the 3D models just put together of the pottery in one of the regions that we discovered. And we utilize these tools to provide everything to the local people that are diving in the area, or any of the researchers or people for future efforts. And I think this paywall that we talked about yesterday, I think this is an important thing that we want to kind of work towards dissolving, so that these all of this hard work that we do and all of these unique environments we explore can be more accessible and more available to people. And here's some of the models available. And then all those tools let us to explore all around the world in a fascinating array of environments. And thank you very much. At zero.
Thank you. Thank you, Jarrod.